These Mobapad M6 Joycons look amazing, but can they get our gaming experience to the next level? All we need is a comfortable and ergonomic grip, great controls and all the features we might expect from an official Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, such as rumble, gyro feature and wireless functionality at a reasonable price. As you've seen in my Hori Split Pad Pro review, these Joy-Cons were great but missing these features. So should you spend your money on the Mobapad M6 Joy-Cons? My name is RobinB360 and welcome to another video. The Mobapad M6 box gives a good first impression as the box feels high quality. It contains a card, which I unfortunately can't read, but the QR code brings you to a website for which you need the WeChat app, so it might be some sort of customer service. The Mobapad itself is well protected with some rubber around the sticks, which is nice, and it includes some extra faceplates. The Mobapad M6 looks very similar to the Hori Split Pad Pro, but there are some small differences, starting with the faceplates. I bought the white Mobapad M6, but with these magnetic faceplates I can easily change the color to black. Just keep in mind that you can only change the front of the Mobapad M6 and not the back. So if you want the black backside, you should order the black Mobapad M6 so you can change the front to a white version while keeping the backside black. But compared to the Hori Split Pad Pro, it is more round shape at the bottom, which I like because it's similar to an Xbox or PlayStation controller and it has a great texture on it for better grip. Compared to the Hori Split Pad Pro, the Mobapad M6 has a more rough texture, which gives you even more grip. The thing I love about the Hori Split Pad Pro is that it is just a little bit wider than the Mobapad M6. Both are great, but it all comes down to personal preference. The bottom part of the Mobapad M6 has a slight curve, which doesn't affect the ergonomics, but it's more of a design choice, I would say. Looking at the sticks, they look almost identical to the Horis with the black and red color, but it feels a little bit cheaper, as it has a smooth and cheap plastic surface, but the resistance feels the same as on the Hori Split Pad Pro. The D-pad on the other hand is nice and almost identical to the D-pad of the Hori Split Pad Pro, which I also liked. As you can see, I had no issues in landing some moves on Street Fighter. All the other normal buttons like the A, B, X and Y are placed the same as in the Hori Split Pad Pro, but the Horis are a bit higher and are silent when you press them. The Mobapad M6 has a clicky tactile feel and sound to them, like on an arcade stick. I love the tactile feedback on the Mobapad M6 unless I game in a room where I need to be quiet. In that case I prefer the Hori Split Pad Pro buttons. The other buttons like the plus, minus, start, home and the extra buttons are not clicky for whatever reason. They are more like on an Xbox controller or PlayStation controller instead of the mushy buttons on the Hori Split Pad Pro. The L and R button, the ZL and ZR button are almost identical to the ones on the Hori Split Pad Pro and are performing a lot better than on the original Joy-Cons. They are a lot wider and have a slight travel to them. On the Mobapad M6, you have that satisfying click again for some tactile feedback. As mentioned, the Mobapad has some extra buttons on both sides, which are a vibration intensity button, which I'm really glad they put on this controller, a settings button so you can map your controls, and a turbo button, which also can come in handy when you need to perform repetitive actions. Last but not least, on the back we have the FL and FR button, which are placed differently on the Mobapad M6 compared to the Hori Split Pad Pro, as you can see here. Your middle finger is completely covering these buttons on the Mobapad, as where on the Hori you are not resting your finger on it, which might give you some issues of accidentally pressing them on the Mobapad M6. But personally I didn't have any issues with this. So how do they perform in game? As mentioned, the D-pad and the tactile buttons are an absolute joy to play for hours on end. You just get a good sense of control and feedback from this controller. The gyroscope also does its work exactly as you might expect, and is great when you need to solve some Zelda puzzles or use them on Pokemon Snap. The Mobapad sticks on the other hand are good, but not as precise on the Hori Split Pad Pro, as you need to push them farther than usual. You can get used to this on most games, but I would not recommend these on fast-paced first-person shooter games like Doom, as it is almost impossible to aim perfectly with these. You can get around it on some games with gyro aiming, but they really missed a great opportunity on this part. The rumble also does its job, but it's not in the kind of way you might be used to. It's not like on an Xbox or PlayStation controller, and it makes a lot of noise. It sometimes even overrules the sound of the game. Luckily, you can adjust this to several rumble intensities through the vibration button. The turbo button is doing its job as it should, but it can jam sometimes on the right back button, which can be annoying. Unfortunately, the Mobapad is not wireless, so if you are expecting to play some Ring Fit, fitness boxing or Just Dance, you cannot use these and you need to go back to the original Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, which is really disappointing because we wanted a replacement Pro Joy-Con. If you have an older Nintendo Switch model like I do, you can dock your Nintendo Switch with the Mobapad M6 attached, just like on the Hori Split Pad Pro. But in my Hori Split Pad Pro review, ASLackey22 informed me in the comments that it doesn't work with the Nintendo Switch OLED model combined with the Hori Split Pad Pro. Thank you for that information, ASLackey22. Because I don't have a Nintendo Switch OLED model, I can't say if docking will work with that model and the Mobapad M6. But if you have the answer to this, feel free to share this information with all of us in the comments below. The Mobapad M6 makes the Nintendo Switch a lot bigger than with the original Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons attached, like the Hori Split Pad Pro. The great thing is that you can buy a bigger case of the Mobapad M6 in the combination deal or as a loose purchase. And I got to say, the quality feels good and sturdy. Speaking of the price, if you only want to buy the Mobapad M6, the pricing is currently around $55 or euros. But if you want the case in the combination deal, you can buy it for around $65 or euros. If you forgot to buy the case, you can also purchase it separately for around $15 or euros. I will leave the link for you in the description. There is just one important thing to mention, and that is that the Mobapad M6 is currently only available on AliExpress, which might be an issue for some of you due to the longer delivery times. For me, the purchase went well, as I got it delivered within a week after I bought it without any issues. So how is my personal verdict? Let's start with the good stuff, the front covers. I absolutely love this idea of having magnetic front covers. It works so easily and they don't come off during gameplay. I really hope they will release more colors, that would be great. The ergonomics like shape and texture. The ergonomics are leaps ahead of the traditional Joy-Cons and are almost similar to the Hori Split Pad Pro. Though there are some small differences between them, you will definitely love them once you upgrade from the original Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. If you already have the Hori Split Pad Pro, it is just a matter of personal preference which you find the better Joy-Con. But ultimately, I don't think you will go wrong when purchasing the Mobapad M6 for the form factor. The tactile buttons. The tactile buttons, or the clicky buttons, are a love it or hate it kind of thing. But if you're in an environment that doesn't require you to be silent, you will probably love them as much as I do, as it brings you back to the arcades and gives you that nice and satisfying tactile feedback. Gyro functions. The gyro functions, as mentioned, work perfectly and was something we were missing on the Hori Split Pad Pro. So it is great that they have added it on the Mobapad M6 so we can play some Pokemon Snap, for example. Price. The price is almost identical to the Hori Split Pad Pro, maybe a few bucks more. Even though there are some differences, looking at the extra options you get here, like the gyro and front covers for example, I would say the pricing seems decent. Rumble if adjusted. The rumble is nice when fishing in Mario Odyssey for example, but not so much in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe unless you tone it down a bit. Because you do have that option to tone it down, I would say the rumble falls in the plus category. If that wasn't the case, then it would definitely be a con. So what about the cons? Sticks. The sticks are one of the biggest disappointments for me. They do work, but the small dead zones are quite unfortunate. You can use the sticks without any big issue for most games, but if you play fast-paced shooters a lot, this controller might not be for you. Unless you change the aiming to gyro aiming, which just isn't ideal. The back buttons. The FL and FR buttons are placed kind of weird and have an issue when combining them with the turbo feature. Even though most of you probably won't use them, they could have done a better job on this part. Lack of wireless functionality. Another missed opportunity, as we expected from a Joy-Con that we can use it for all types of games, maybe even some fitness boxing or something like that. But when you want to play those games, you need to head back to the original Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, and that was just the thing we were trying to avoid. Only available at AliExpress. Even though it's not a downside for me, it can be a downside for many to only have the option to buy it on AliExpress, because of the longer than normal delivery times. It would be great if you can see it being sold on Amazon in the future with a one-day delivery for example. My experience was that I used the Mobapad M6 a lot throughout the day and when I needed the extra features like rumble and gyro. But when I needed to be more quiet when gaming at night, or when I needed more precision in my aiming in shooters, I would go back to the Hori Split Pad Pro. So would you buy the Mobapad M6 after this review? Comment below, hit the like button to support me and subscribe if you want to see more similar gaming content. Thank you for watching and I will see you on the next video.